Masters of every art and industry. The Moors in Al-Andalus. 711 CE. In context. Locations: Spain and Portugal. Before 415 CE, the Iberian Peninsula is settled by Visigoths, Germanic Christians. 632, the Prophet Muhammad dies in Arabia. Islam, the religion he founded, spreads. 634, the Islamic Empire expands into North Africa. After 1492, after the Christian reconquest of Iberia, Spain embarks on a long period of overseas expansion. Christopher Columbus lands in America on a voyage funded by the Spanish crown. 1609, a royal decree dispels descendants of Moriscos, Muslims who had converted to Christianity, from Spain. In the spring of 711 CE, Tariq ibn Zayed, governor of Tangier in Morocco, sailed a fleet across the straits between North Africa and Hispania, the Roman name for the Iberian Peninsula. Tariq was accompanied by a large army of African soldiers under the banner of the powerful Umayyad Caliphate. The Islamic Empire is seated in Damascus. The distinctive rocky outcrop where the fleet landed would come to be known as Tariq's Mountain, or Jabal Tariq, today's Gibraltar. This marked the start of Moorish rule in Iberia, Spain and Portugal. Tariq's army quickly defeated and killed King Roderick, the Visigoth ruler, and exploited the resulting power vacuum. Over the next decade, Moorish armies from North Africa completed the conquest of Hispania. In generations to come, the province of Al-Andalus would become the western jewel of the Islamic world, the center of a sophisticated culture. Different factures. The word Moor comes from Mori, the Roman name for the inhabitants of the Berber kingdom of Mauritania, Morocco and Algeria. By the time of the conquest of Iberia, the term referred to a loose ethnic group of North Africans. Some descended from the Berbers, the indigenous peoples of the Maghreb, North Africa, and some from the Arabs who had arrived during the Umayyad expansion from Syria. By the time the Umayyad Caliphate fell in the east in 750, Al-Andalus was in the grip of feuding Arab and Berber factions. When a young prince called Abd al-Rahman, who had fled from Damascus before his fall, arrived in Al-Andalus in 755, he was welcomed by many and quickly took control. The fact that he was half Berber made him a uniting force in multicultural Moorish Iberia. He and his successors consolidated Al-Andalus into the prosperous and cosmopolitan emirate, later Caliphate, of Cordoba. In this picture, the horseshoe arches of the Great Mosque of Cordoba are typical of Mozarabic architecture, a style developed by Christian architects who assimilated Moorish influence. Intellectual capital. Al-Andalus reached its zenith in the 10th century. It was known for its open culture where Christians and Jews could each practice their religion. Non-Muslims were not seen as completely equal to Muslims and had to pay a special tax, but many prospered and made significant cultural contributions. Cordoba became renowned as the intellectual capital of Europe, attracting the best minds of the day, whether they were Muslims, Jews, or Christians. In the 10th century, Caliph al-Hakim II built the most extensive library in the world, reputedly containing some 400,000 volumes. He invited scholars from Egypt and Baghdad, the brilliant capital of the Abbasid Caliphate that was experiencing its own golden age, to study in Cordoba, paying them out of his own treasury. The exchange of knowledge and ideas in the city led to significant advances in science, astronomy, and mathematics. The 10th century surgeon Abu al-Qasim al-Zahrawi, for example, produced medical textbooks that were still being used in 17th century London, while his contemporary Maslama al-Majridi, who established a school of mathematics and astronomy in Cordoba, accurately calculated the size of the Mediterranean for the first time. In the 12th century, astronomer and mathematician Jabir ibn Afla, known as Geber in Europe, published an important criticism of Ptolemy's Almagest and developed a theorem of spherical trigonometry. In philosophy, Ibn Rushd, known in Europe as Averroes, produced distinguished summaries and commentaries on the works of Aristotle and Plato's Republic and produced his own treatises on the philosophical study of religion. Abu Abdallah Muhammad XII surrendered the keys of Granada to the Catholic rulers of Aragon and Castile in 1492. After the fall of the Emirate, he left Spain for Morocco. In this picture, I want the Arabic Granada, that which is art, which is all that seems to me beauty and emotion. Isaac Albeniz, Spanish composer, born in 1860 and died in 1909. Stability fractures. In the 11th century, a power struggle between the Caliph and members of his court led to a period of civil war, known as the Fitna, lasting from 1009 to 1032. Al-Andalus splintered into a set of warring fiefdoms and city-states called taifas, which became pawns in the struggle for dominance between Christendom to the north and Muslim empires in Morocco. Christian states capitalized on the decentralization by launching targeted attacks to reclaim the Iberian Peninsula, while both the Almoravids and the Almohads, Berber dynasties that had swept power in Morocco, annexed taifas in attempts to shore up Al-Andalus. Christian powers had tried to drive the Moors out of the Iberian Peninsula for almost as long as the Moors had ruled over Iberian territory. The reconquest, was bloody and long, an 800-year struggle that ebbed and flowed. By the 13th century, the tide was unstoppable. Cordoba fell to Christian forces in 1236, followed by Seville in 1248. The Emirate of Granada was the only Moorish jurisdiction left on the peninsula. For the next 250 years, Granada's Nasrid dynasty kept both the Christians and the powerful Moroccan dynasties at bay by alternately switching their alliance between the two. The policy was sufficiently successful to enable Granada to thrive. Like Cordoba in the 10th century, it became a hub of learning centering on the Alhambra Palace. Fate and legacy. By the late 15th century, Moorish rule in Granada could hold out no longer. Appeals for military assistance from Morocco, by then in a weakened state itself, failed. In January of 1492, Queen Isabella of Castile and King Ferdinand of Aragon, whose marriage and joint rule had united the Christian territory of Spain, accepted Granada's surrender by Abu Abdallah Muhammad XII, known in Europe as Boabdil. This marked the end of Islamic rule on the Iberian Peninsula and set the scene for Spain's golden age as one of the largest empires in history. After the Reconquest, Moors in Spain were forced to convert to Christianity, emigrate, or face execution. Many of them, whose families had populated the region for close to 800 years, stayed in Spain even though their language and customs represented an affront to the Catholic kingdom. Muslims and Jews who practiced their faith in secret faced the Inquisition, a judicial body set up to stamp out heresy. The inquisitors used torture to extract confessions. Punishments included burning at the stake. Attempts to expunge Moorish culture from the peninsula were not wholly successful. Spanish and Portuguese contain many Arabic words, and some of Spain's finest monuments, such as Granada's Alhambra and Seville's Alcazar, are of Moorish origin. Cordoba's Great Mosque, commissioned in 785 by Abd al-Rahman I on the site of a Visigoth church and possibly a Roman temple, has functioned as a Christian cathedral since the Spanish conquest of Cordoba, yet it remains a magnificent monument of the Moorish period and is now a World Heritage Site. These are the keys to paradise: Abu Abdallah Muhammad XII and the surrender of Granada. Tariq ibn Ziyad. Little is known about Tariq ibn Ziyad, the general who led the Muslim conquest of Spain, but historians think he was of Berber origin. Before becoming a soldier, he had been a trusted advisor, and possibly enslaved before that, to Musa ibn Nusayr, Umayyad governor of North Africa. Ibn Nusayr made Ibn Ziyad governor of Tangier and tasked him with leading the Muslim conquest of Iberia, a few miles across the narrow straits in 711. Tariq and his largely Berber army of 7,000 men were welcomed by some communities in Iberia, such as Jews who had been persecuted by the Visigoths, and they quickly swept north, taking Toledo, the bastion of the Visigoth king Roderick near modern Madrid. In the same year they set sail. Tariq succeeded in holding power until large Arab armies arrived the following year to consolidate Umayyad rule. In 714, the Caliph ordered Ibn Ziyad to Damascus. Ibn Ziyad died there in 720, never returning to Iberia or North Africa.